Foundation's an organization of people who are dedicated to opening the space frontier to human settlement, which is a nice mission statement. We want to use the resources of the solar system to make life better on Earth. Space is not just a place to go out and have some grand adventure for a handful of government employees. It's a place to go out to and find the things that we need to have freedom and prosperity and a better environment right back here at home. And we're convinced that the only sensible way to do that is by unleashing the power of free enterprise. And so we get very involved in the various NewSpace companies, and we, and various other efforts that are around in the community.
You've been doing the NewSpace Conference now for how many years?
I actually don't know. We didn't always call it NewSpace Conference because we hadn't made up the word NewSpace. Actually, 3 of us made up the word NewSpace only about 5 years ago, and we hated people were calling it alt space. And we hated it. We just despised the name alt space. And 3 of us started talking to each other, myself, Chaz Miller, and Bill Boland. And we just kept kicking around various different things to call it. And a lot of people have referred to it as NewSpace, small letters, 2 words. On and off occasionally over the years, but we thought we really kicked it around. We said that's a phrase we could brand, and Boland said let's just cram it together into one word, capitalize both of them, and let's see if we can get everybody to start using the words NewSpace to describe this thing. And so when we told other people that we were going to do this, they said, well, what's the definition of NewSpace? And we said, we don't have a definition. We don't need a definition to create a term. We know when we see it. And, it'll develop its own definition, don't worry. And there are still people struggling to define it, but it's really caught on. It's become the dominant word. But the conference pre-existed that. We called it the Space Frontier Conference. And it goes back to the early 90s. I don't really remember when we started.
Tell us about what is going on at this year's conference.
Well, this year's conference was particularly interesting because it was a collaboration between the Space Frontier Foundation and Ames. And a lot of people think of NASA as a very monolithic organization, and it's not. There's huge differences amongst the various centers and various bits and pieces of NASA. Ames has been at the forefront of the effort to commercialize space. They have been very aggressive and creative in their outreach to the local business community, as well as to the new space companies nationwide. And we've developed a very close relationship with Ames over the last several years. And they really wanted us to have the conference here on the Ames campus, and we said, sure. It creates some logistical complexities, particularly for the foreigners among us. But we thought it was worth it, and it'd be kind of cool to have it here. And I think partially a result of that, and partially as a result of the involvement of senior leadership at Ames, we've had a lot more senior NASA speakers than we have in the past. And it's still mostly a meeting of the new space companies and new space nonprofits and so forth. But there's also been more than a sprinkling of the more innovative and forward-looking people inside the agency as well. And I think that's given it a new flavor that we haven't had in the past.
Tell us a little bit about what it takes to put on a conference.
We're actually very lucky in that we've been attracting a lot of young people in recent years. And I decided, I guess, 4 years ago maybe, that we were going to funnel the young people into the conference team and transition to a youthful team to run the conference. And I believe that there is nobody over 30 on the conference team this year. But they, of course, can't do programming. You can't realistically expect, a 22-year-old to pick up the phone and call the associate administrator of NASA and say, hey, come on down. So what we did is we formed a programming committee that was joint NASA, part NASA, part us. And we just, have a weekly telecon and say, well, who do we want? What do we want to do? And, split up who's inviting who. And, mostly what it was NASA people inviting NASA people and foundation people inviting NewSpace people and commercial space people. And, because it's a small community and everybody knows each other. And we just sort of piece it together slowly. We tend not to focus too much on overarching themes. I mean, we started with a very rough outline of, the today, the future division. It's in the program. But we really look at who are the speakers that people want to hear, and then kind of fit them together into panels and into these half-hour keynotes. We're a single-track conference. We don't break. We have some breakouts, but mostly we have single. Most of the time, it's just a single track going on, and a lot of people not in the conference. They're out in the halls, schmoozing, networking, making deals. We long ago learned that we needed to have side rooms where people could have private conversations. There's a lot of companies been formed at our conference. A lot of people have met here for the first time. More than a few marriages resulted from coming to our conferences. It's a real social kind of place and a great group of people that we've always attracted.
What stands out? We're about a little over halfway through the conference this year. What stands out so far to you personally? When you're involved in these things, you tend to see the logistics. What I see is that we're outgrowing the facility. We are absolutely at the limit of how many people we can fit in there, which is why we're sitting at this plastic table outside. We couldn't squeeze. What, did the fire marshal chase you out? Is that what happened? Indeed he did.
So that's really notable to me. The conference keeps growing, and we need a bigger place next year. So that's really been on my mind. I don't know that most of the attendees really noticed that particularly. I mean, people certainly notice that it's crowded and that some of the panels have been standing room only, but I don't think that bothers people.